Evening all. I'm just still getting over the Olympics of the Australian hockey side. The hockey Roos got into the gold medal. I'm pumped. Being a hockey person, I'm pumped. Tonight, clarity for homeowners and investors. That's our main topic for discussion tonight. Amongst other things, of course, tonight we'll also look at the week that was, and we might touch on a bit of Olympics. Why not? Seeing we've all got a bit of Olympic fever. Our regular, very important sector is the segment is OD stats. Always look forward to that. That's huge. And of course, our main topic, as I said, clarity for homeowners and investors. And that's interesting with regard to the investment market. We will look at some of the information that's been going around with regard to some other topics that have come up for conversation. And also got some several questions tonight. So in our Discovering the Answers section, we'll look forward to that. And of course, what's on the notice board?
I love this segment.
What's on the notice board? We've got a couple of things to go on there. And then we'll talk about the property headlines. And of course, we will finish with an if question, of course. So Property Avenue WA, welcome to all. I'm TV, he's Oscar D'Souza, and we just love doing this. We're available we do a live stream every Tuesday night, and of course our podcast is available every Wednesday. And importantly, we should address the disclaimer, which is very important.
Yes, I love this bit too.
I know you do. For those that can read it, obviously the live stream, but we've got to consider our podcast people. And the general advice disclaimer, this information on this podcast is regarded as general advice. Your personal objectives, needs, and financial circumstances were not taken into account when preparing the content. Woohoo! Got it. Nailed it. We always advise and recommend you seek personal, professional, and financial advice tailored to your specific individual needs before making financial, property, and investment decisions. Cannot emphasize that enough. As we say every week, it's really, really important, be it your accountant, be it your financial advisor, be it your real estate agent, your settlement agent, or your just property consultant. It's really important to get support and professional advice for your individual circumstances. And we see it week in, week out, and even property managers. So yeah, this is your WA property podcast. And the focus is on WA property. We talk WA property, and we have a bit of fun along the way. And we always invite you, if you've got any comments, you've got any questions. Probably a lot of people are going to be distracted with the Olympic Games, I reckon, tonight. But anyway, we'll continue on, and you can listen to the podcast tomorrow. We're available through Facebook page. We're available with Instagram, and we're available on Twitter. So if you've got any questions or anything that you want to send through to us, you can do it on the live chat line. Or later on the week, if you're perhaps listening to the podcast and you've got some questions or you've got a topic, send it through to us. So, OD, how was your week?
Pretty good so far, mate. And sorry, just on the topic of questions that you just mentioned, I've noticed just over the last month, there's a lot of questions that seem to be finding themselves or finding their way to UTV, obviously not during the show, so that's fine. But it's good to see that people are hunting you or hunting us down during the week. But also, it's a bit more fun, I guess, and it's a bit more interactive that if people have got questions during the show, and obviously that's only available during the live show, the live stream that we're doing now, then I'd strongly encourage anyone to send through some questions and put us on the spot. And we'll answer your questions to do with WA real estate as best we can. But mate, I'm really good. In fact, I'm probably telling a lie because I just mentioned to you off air that I've just got myself a little bit of a cold, bit of a head cold, I think. So just in the last 24 hours, and I think I'm on the way down as opposed to on the way up. But I think I just need to toughen up a little bit. Other than that, looking forward to the next 45 minutes. And there's lots going on in our WA property market, and probably we need to dispel some of the myths, because I caught the Channel 7 news tonight, and I saw what they were saying about the WA property market, and I talk to a number of real estate agents every week, as you know, and they're telling a different story. And then we've got a completely different story in the stats as well, which I'm going to get to. So, and I note that one of your questions during the week is someone asking about the Perth property market and is it a good time for investors? So I think we've got a lot to cover over the next 45 minutes, and I can't wait to get stuck into it.
Yeah, I'm with you, and you stole my thunder a bit because we didn't have time to prep to do our little pre-podcast meeting because we were preoccupied with Olympic Games and things. It's taken me just about all day to prepare today because I'm in between phone calls and a few little particular Olympic Games. But I just thought, beyond the sporting side of the Olympic Games, I think this is really relative with regard to life and the challenges. And we pick up the papers and we listen to the news. And as you say, there's some interesting observations and statistics. But one of the things that I've picked up with the Olympic Games, and for those that don't know me, I can't help myself. I'm just one of these sporting. If I had my life again, I'd probably want to be more involved in sport, but that's another story. But one of the things that's really intrigued me is the stories of these athletes, some of the issues and some of the challenges that these people, and they are challenges. We sometimes look at these athletes and go, oh, how good is he, and how, but I think we forget, like as it is in life, whether it be a real estate agent, whether you be an investor, you're a business person, or you're an employee for a particular business, the challenges that people go through in life is highlighted, I think, with what we're watching, and there's thousands of people watching the Olympic Games. But the things, the mental issues, the story of the athlete, that one of our Australian athletes who went through huge issues with eating disorder. That young American girl who came back tonight and got back on the champion. I think there's four, if my memory serves me correctly, 4 events that are actually being named after, or 4 moves in gymnastics being named after her. That's how good she is. And the mental issues that she had, and she got back on the bike today. And there's all these naysayers, perhaps all for the wrong reasons, but wouldn't know the challenges that these young people go through. The swimmer that had a reconstruction of his shoulder and minuscule seconds away from winning gold medal for Australia, and they're not that young Australian runner. He's running tomorrow in the 800 metres. He went to school here in Perth. I actually looked his story up when he ran for Australia in the Rio Olympics, and it's a brilliant story. He actually asked the teacher when they said to him, "Can you run 400 metres?" He said, "How far is that?" And they said, "It's a lap of the oval." And here he is now running in a final for the 800 metres and got a chance. Yeah. It's just fabulous. I just love that stuff. It's not just the sporting stuff, but the challenges and the things that people have gone through to get to that point. And the standard comment that's been made time and time again, we can all do it if we work hard enough when we take on the challenge. These are just everyday people. And I think that goes for life, whether it be buying property or you're in a business or you're establishing something. It's just quite exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, TV. The Olympic Games and the events and the 2 minutes of fame, or the 10 minutes or the 45 minutes of fame, and everything that they've worked for, it all amounts to that one finite moment, I guess, when it's actually time to compete. But I'm with you. I really, really love the inspiring story behind how they got to that position in the first place. And I'm just a lover of inspiring stories, people overcoming challenges, developing this internal level of resilience that no one can give you, no one can do it for you. You just have to find it within yourself. And most of the time, in order to be able to generate that level of resilience, you have to have done things pretty tough. You must have had some pretty severe or strong challenges in order for you to develop your own level of resilience and how it is that you deal with adversity. So, mate, I absolutely love those stories. It's sometimes it's even more overpowering than the outcome of the event that they're competing in. So, but yeah, it's a great time to be Australian too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but the reverse of that, of course, is the despair. You go so close, and there's a referee's decision or an umpire's decision, or whatever it may be, that you've worked so hard to get to a point, and then suddenly it just hasn't quite. You're talking about milliseconds. We're talking about minute. Hit the post and miss the goal. There's just all these things, and then you get the classic. You get the triathlon, whereby the press boat. Did you see that with the press boat suddenly at the start line and the swimmers, or the swimming leg? Half the competitors couldn't take off because this media boat stuck in the middle of it. It's just so the variety of stories and the variety of issues associated with that, it's a show in itself. So I just love doing it, and I can't believe how many times I've had tears and I've got there and worn holes in the carpet getting all excited about some events and the emotion of it all. I think you can't help yourself, I don't reckon, sometimes. Anyway, that was all good. So that's been a lot of part of my week, in between being very, very busy. And that's something we'll take up with the observation. I think have you got anything else to add before we get on to OD stats?
No, not really. I think we should just get straight into it. Let's talk a bit of real estate.
WA rental and sales stats. Over to you, my boy.
I didn't realise you were about to do that. I forgot, in fact, that you created that little Star Trek number. But anyway,
I've got a new one for this week. Got another little doozy. Keep going.
Oh my God, I'm on the edge of my seat. I can't wait. Okay, so I touched on it earlier, just in the introduction, and that is the statistics that are coming out, which are reliable, informed statistics, anecdotal statistics of exactly what's going on in our WA property market. And as I mentioned before, I heard on the news tonight. What are you laughing at?
Have a look at this comment that was just sent through today.
Did you see Italians can jump high and run fast? Yes. Yeah, they certainly can run fast, that's for sure.
That's another story. Keep going. Sorry, I had to tell you that. Yep.
All right. So I saw on the news on Channel 7 tonight about the Perth property market is what's it called? Not heating up, heating down. Basically, it's starting to taper off, and that's good news for buyers who were thinking that they're going to struggle to actually get into the market because prices are just out of control. So that was one story that I heard. The real estate people that I talked to, the sales agents, the good sales agents, for the last couple of months have also been reporting that sting that we saw basically all year, that's also started to come out of the market as well. And what else have I heard? Just people around the traps generally are saying, and also we're right in the thick, obviously, of winter, and winter is definitely a quieter time for no other reason other than the weather, and it's not the time to get out and be looking at houses. And July definitely was not conducive to people getting out and looking at houses to buy, just because of the rainfall that we had. That all said, TV. The stats never, ever lie. A photo never lies, and stats never lies. And the numbers that are coming out in terms of the statistics are just turning everything else on its head in terms of the feeling of what people believe they might be seeing out there in the market. So just in terms of sales activity, in the last 7 days, for the week closing last Friday, there's 947 sales across Perth, 947. Now that number over the last couple of months has consistently been between 800 to 900. And when things started to slow down a little bit, or we thought they were slowing down, it dropped to just under, or between say 700 and 800. But now 947 sales just in the last 7 days. This time last year, in the same week last year, 784 sales. So in the same week last year, I mean, we were well out of the COVID period, and our real estate market really kicked off out of that COVID period quite amazingly, actually. And so still 950 sales, basically. Listings are back down to 8,283 listings available through Perth. This time last year, again, when the market was cranking, there was 10,784 listings available. So that's 23% less listings today than there was this time last year, 23%. Now, we saw a couple of months ago our listing levels, our stock levels actually started to increase, and they almost edged towards that 10,000 mark. So I think it got to about 9,500 to 9,700. And we all thought, certainly the people in the real estate fraternity thought that, okay, now that that level of supply is starting to go back up, and hence the buyers have got a bit more choice in their properties, and that's why we started to feel that the market might be turning a bit, and the buyers have got more time and more choice, and maybe the market's tapering off. But now we're back down to just a touch over 8,000 listings. So, and we're not even at the spring selling season yet, which is a couple of months away. So the statistics point to a very, very strong sales market here, not just in Perth, but in all of WA. Rental market is still very, very strong. It maybe it's tapered off a little bit, but it's still very, very strong. 743 properties leased in the last 7 days. This time last year was 857. So it's down a little bit from where it was 12 months ago, but it's still very, very strong. Listings wise, we again thought that we're heading back up towards around about 3,000 properties available for rent in Perth, which would be a vacancy rate of around about 1.2%. But as at today, 2,670 properties available in Perth. This time last year, 3,554. So that basically says, compared to last year, we've got 25% less rental stock on the market in Perth, which I think it's a bit of a mind-blowing stat. So it might have softened a little bit in terms of activity, but it's still a very, very tight rental market. And for our Gero friends, we always talk about Geraldton. I just checked just a moment ago. Geraldton's got 53 rentals available right this minute. So a couple of months ago, it dropped down to 42. Then we did actually see it spring back up into the high 60s, and now it's dropped back down to around about 53 properties. So it's still a very, very tight rental market in Geraldton. Rents are going up. There's just simply not enough rental properties for the demand, and that's pretty consistent through Perth. And it's also pretty consistent through the rest of regional WA as well. So our residential market across the board here in WA is showing all signs of resilience, and it's not showing any signs whatsoever of letting up. The stats don't lie.
Yeah, and that's what's intrigued me with regard to some of the comments and some, suggestion that the market's slowing and things like that. As we've said, and you've certainly been pressing that issue, that certainly the sting, as we say, has gone out of the market. But as one of the questions that we've received here, which we'll get to in that segment. But I'm dealing with a couple of clients who have now got a property, but it's taken them more than one crack, and it's taken them to have to readjust what they are offering when it comes to buying, to allow them to obtain a property. So it's still, as we discussed last week, and our main topic last week was, is Perth, is WA still an affordable? Absolutely is, when you compare what's available on the East Coast. And it's interesting that you see there was a news piece where, even though New South Wales / Sydney is with lockdown, their market is still going very strong, surprisingly, Yeah. So we are very affordable. We perhaps haven't had the dramatic percentage increases in values that some other markets have, and we'll get to that shortly. But it's still it's not going backwards.
No,
it's just not
at all.
It's not flying. That's all. That's the only difference. It's still a plus. It's still a plus percentage. It's not a negative percentage.
Yeah, look, and it's better to have a more sustainable level of growth like what WA has got, as opposed to something more volatile that what we see in Sydney, because we've seen ridiculous exponential sometimes growth rates in Sydney, but then when we've seen them fall off a cliff, they literally do fall off a cliff. So it's actually better for us we might not have the same rate of growth anywhere in the country. But it's still a very strong, solid level of growth, and it is actually a bit more sustainable than what we've seen in New South Wales. So, but mate, the hot tip basically though And what is really going to tell our story is what we see in September and October. So we've just ticked over into August, obviously, and the next 3 or 4 weeks will absolutely fly. But what we see in September and October, which is going to be our spring selling season, it's always a very, very strong. In fact, it's the busiest time of the real estate year here in WA. And this strong picture that we've got now in terms of our sales volumes, our low listings, a very hot rental market, it's only going to get busier. It's just going to be a hotter market anyway. So mark my words, right now, if right now is strong, it's going to get hotter in September and October. No question.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. And I think that, I still believe, I mean, this is only my opinion. I don't have any statistics to support what I'm saying, but I still believe that we will perhaps, I've already had 2 people that I am assisting at the moment, and this is just little old me, but 2 people from the East Coast who have contacted me, and I'm assisting them with wanting to buy over here in WA. Now, I don't promote myself in that sphere. It's just through word of mouth. But what I'm saying is they are talking to other people, and I am confident, I strongly believe that we will get, and there's probably statistics out there to prove me right, maybe prove me wrong. I'm happy to, if I am proved wrong, that's good. But I still believe with what's going over on the East Coast, affordability here in WA, that and the weather will have an impact, the lockdown will have an impact, that there's got to be, in my opinion, an increase in interest and Eastern States people buying here in WA, whether it be regional or the metro area. I think that's going to be across the board, in my opinion.
Notwithstanding the jobs boom that we've got going on over here as well. Most industries at the moment are struggling to find people, let alone skilled people. And we've just got a cranky mining sector as well. So it's all good news for WA, which is great.
I think so. And there was a little piece, I think it was today, making references to the boom running out of steam. I mean, that to me is like, no.
No,
come and work in, go and see anybody who's working in the industry, and I don't mean just real estate agents, and find out if the boom's running out of steam. Not from my observation.
Every single business. I stopped in at Bridgestone today, and I had to get a puncture in my wife's back left tyre fixed. And I was just chatting with the guy running the business over there, and he said, mate, we've got to fit in these little jobs, but we're booked for general mechanical stuff. We're booked out a couple of weeks in advance. We're just looking for one more person right now, but we'd put on 2 if we could find them. I had a rental property that needed some gutter cleaning, just cleaning out of the gutters because of the weather that we've had. And he came back to me and said, yep, no worries, happy to take your booking, but we can't get to it till the 7th of September. Is that okay? And it's like, well, yeah, that like every single thing I touch, none of it is available in terms of services for tomorrow or the next day, or barely even this week. So I think it's across the board, mate. We've got a and it's not a secret. It's not a new concept. We've got a labour shortage over here. We need more people to come to WA, and when they do come, they need housing. They're going to pump money into the economy, and it's just a great story for WA. I
think so. I agree. Which gets me on to the next point. Our main topic for tonight was the clarity for homeowners and investors, and where I identified and came up with that idea. When I say idea, that topic was that there was a media release from the Real Estate Institute of Australia, and what it was about. You may recall in 2019, which was the year of the federal election. And the Labor Party were really controversially, I suppose, had a policy where they were going to limit the negative gearing arrangements, and also associated with capital gains. And that was, some were suggesting that it perhaps had an impact on the result, which was probably an unbeatable win for Labor Party, became a major loss, a surprise loss. Yeah. And I think what's often forgotten is that the investor, the real estate investor, I think statistically, and remember the stats are only available, I think the most recent stats available with this sort of information is like 218 or 219, but it's something like 70%, I think, is the market of people that own at least one property as investment. Now, majority of those are just mums and dads. They are not people with 5 and 6. I think, in fact, there was something, the percentage of people that own more than 4 investment properties, for example, is minute. It's something like 500 people out of 1 million or something that own more than four properties or 5 properties. I picked up that stat from somewhere. But what I'm getting at is that, you know, as much as there is this myth, if you like, that, you know, rich, wealthy people that, you know, have billions of dollars in the bank account have investment properties is not quite true. It's the everyday person. And one of the questions that I've been sent through tonight is exactly that. There are individuals that are going through the challenges and they've used investment property as their opportunity to get a little bit further and help them in retirement, basically.
Yeah, and you think about it, you just touched on it then. You think about the purpose of why people do do invest in property. And obviously, I think most of the time, if you ask people why are they investing in property, it'll be for one or two reasons. One is what you just touched on, and that is to assist in their retirement and provide them an income possibly into their retirement. And the other reason most of the time they're going to say is it's for the kids. So, you know, to help the kids, to give the kids a bit of a leg up and to pay the kids or the grandkids school fees or whatever. So it's all about creating sometimes an income stream, but also some level of wealth or some level of net wealth, for the reason being, a long time ago, there was this thing called the pension, and it was the government that basically said, we're going to stop paying this pension out. And so we had to look at other forms of other ways to fund our retirement and other ways to create wealth for the family. And property investment obviously is a historical one and has been a very, very good one. Maybe not as good in the last 10 years since the GFC, but other than the GFC, it has actually been a really good way to create wealth for families. So then to tax it the way, you know, to disincentivize people to do it by abolishing things like negative gearing or possibly increasing capital gains tax. I mean, the whole capital gains tax thing is it's almost a similar sort of a debate like stamp duty. I mean, you know, you're meant to be incentivizing, not disincentivizing people to invest in property. And we've spoken so much about stamp duty. That won't change in a hurry because it's just too easy for the government. And the capital gains thing is as farcical, I guess, but probably won't change. But
well, there's I keep on arguing the point. Sorry to interrupt, but I keep on arguing the point that capital gains, when you think about it, and when you consider the percentage of people, the everyday person, as Andy and Hamish call the common man, as they like to call the common man, it's the everyday person who's got an investment property, and where's the incentive to succeed? Where's the incentive? I know there's some challenging stories out there. We all accept that. There always will be. No matter what we do, there's going to be, you can try and improve it, but it also takes, I get back to the introduction about some of these athletes and some of the challenges, no different to the everyday person, the challenge they've gone through to succeed. And I think we've got to look at that more and have a crack. We've got to have a crack. That's the Australian way as it always used to be. And I think we've got to change that way. So where I'm coming from with this particular clarity for homeowners is that the Labor, the leader of the opposition has now announced that Labor will support the status quo for negative gearing and capital gain tax should they reform government. So they've changed. They've had a complete about face, and they have now pretty much supporting what the government's been saying. The government of the day has been saying that, so they're now going to support that. So there's now no longer that element of concern. There's that element of doubt, and so that may just, we talk about investors slowly coming back into the market. There's probably a lot of people that are getting into the investment market who probably didn't even think about negative gearing because interest rates are so low. The impact of negative gearing is less, particularly here in WA. But at least gives some clarity, and it now gives some certainty. If you're going to invest in property, you don't need to concern yourself at the next election that if Labor Party got in, we know what the current government thinks, but if Labor Party get in, the situation with regard to investment property is not going to change and you're not going to get whacked.
Yeah, unless it's just a complete political play of the Labor Party.
Well, that's always a political. That's always a political.
Because at the moment, obviously, you know, the Morrison government is not overly popular, with largely because of supposedly the handling of the vaccine rollout. But anyway, look, I shouldn't be so cynical. If they're reversing their view on investment property strategy and capital gains, then and negative gearing, well, that's actually a good thing. So I should be a bit happier about it.
Well, as this media release says, the vast majority of property investors are everyday Australians looking to provide for their own retirements, who are also instrumental in providing the rental accommodation that is needed by the 27% of Australians who rent their home. So and the Australian Tax Office data shows that the majority, just over 70% of investors, own just one investment property, which I think I said to you earlier on.
Yeah,
I'd read that elsewhere as well. So, and we also do not want capital gain tax become overly, as you've just said, incentivize and discourage households from right sizing. This will particularly be the case as Australia's population ages, and that's an issue in itself. We've got a population that is getting older, and I think that's where we come back to the stamp duty argument. We need to consider stamp duty issues for the over 60s when it comes to downsizing. You're putting your socks on or something?
Just took them off, actually. Good pickup.
Oh, dearie me. And as I said, which this is just noticed there, that the Real Estate Institute of Australia ran a major myth-busting campaign about negative gearing and capital gain to investors and tenants that reached over 10 million property customers. So it's been an issue, and it's now been, at this point in time, it looks like it's going to be both parties are on the same page, and it's not going to impact. And so what do we see that will have? Do you see that changing with regard to people's attitude about investing in property, or you just think it's going to stay where it is?
I could only think that it's going to have more of a stimulating effect, TV, in terms of because if they were going to make changes to the negative gearing tax benefits, I don't know what they were going to do to capital gains tax, but if they were going to basically take away or reduce the benefits of negative gearing, well, that is a disincentive, obviously, for people that are looking to minimise the tax that they pay based on their income. So it clearly is a disincentive. If they've now changed their tune and they're simply not going to do that anymore, then that basically, like you said before, it takes away that risk or that concern, and therefore the disincentive is reversed. It now is actually reverts back to an incentive where people should not be afraid of considering property investment. But even more to the point, and if we're thinking about property investment here in WA, we're not experts on markets in the eastern states, but in WA we've got a pretty good grip as to what's going on. Those three fundamental things that make for a great investment here in WA is there going to be capital growth, and I think we've already touched on that, and we're seeing that over the last 12 months, and we predict that will continue. The rental return, we know too well what the rental market is like over here in WA. It's very, very low vacancy. high demand and rents are increasing. And then the third factor, obviously, is the interest rates, which we all know is a very, very low interest rate environment, and that's unlikely to change any time in the next 2 to 3 years. So it's got every single fundamental ingredient for a great property investment here in WA. And the fact that the federal opposition has changed their tune on negative gearing, I can only see that as a positive and a stimulus.
Yep. And of course, as you said, come September or thereabouts, when the weather warms up a bit, as the spring carnival, as we like to call it, then it'll be very, very interesting as to what that enthusiasm is. And maybe this is not going to make any difference to people's attitudes, but maybe for some it will. Maybe that person who only invested in one property might turn around and go, you know what? I might try and I've got the ability to do another property. You never know.
The other thing being as well, TV, is that for people that have been divesting in properties, maybe just over the last 12 months, if they foresaw that there was going to be this change coming up where they're not going to be able to negatively gear their properties, that might have actually been a stimulant for them to offload their investment properties before that change comes into effect. And so now if they know, irrespective of which government, it's not going to have an effect, again, it provides a stimulant for, number one, those people that were thinking about selling because of that fact alone, now maybe, or they probably won't. And for those that already have, well, it's too late, the horse is bolted, that it might change their view on getting back into the investment property market. So I guess we'll wait and see.
Just as a matter of interest, you know how I love my stats. With the investment property, as of the census date in 2011, it was 7.9%, which was 1.7 million people. Only had one property, 72, just under 71% of all investors. So of that 1.7 million, and 5.7% of the Australian population owned at least one investment property.
5 to 7% of the Australian population owned at least one investment property.
Yep.
And
that was back in 10 years ago. And in 2018, this was the Australian Tax Office figures. It was 2.2 million people, which was around about 20% of Australian households hold one investment property.
Really?
That's what it said as of the taxation.
Wow, that's a pretty massive jump, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is there another census coming up this year?
Oh, you've got to wait. I'm about to. What's on the notice board? You just jump in the gun. Just wait.
What's on the notice board?
Hey, just be good. So there we go. That's we're going along nicely, but I want to get on to, because we've got some questions. So we will get on to discovering the answer. Discover the answers. Did you like that one?
TB, you're like one of those cheap barley commercials or something like that, and they just come up with all these crazy little sing-alongs or little musical pieces.
It's on the weekend. It was raining and it was horrible, and I was working and we didn't do anything. And I took my eldest son and my daughter-in-law and my two beautiful granddaughters, Jude and I, out for dinner. But the rest of the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, it was horrible weather. So I was working away, and I thought, you know what? So I did a little. We need a little ditty for discovering the answers.
Done a great job.
Hey, you guys, what's your view of the Perth property market? We have been looking at investment opportunities. However, how interesting. However, our offers, we have been advised, we've been beaten by as much as 50,000 plus in some cases. Is the market moving that much, or is discounting not really happening in the current market? That was from Corey.
Yeah, so I reckon there's 2 or 3 issues there. Hey, where's Corey from? Is he a WA person or someone from out of WA?
No.
Right.
No.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's probably three answers to that rather large question. First answer is in my opinion, is the property market moving? Is Perth a good place to invest? Absolutely yes. That's certainly already been answered during the show. Second part of the question is in terms of the offers that you're putting in. One thing as an investor, if it is purely for investment, you can't get carried away with the market hype. You can't worry too much about the FOMO, because that'll cause you to make a bad investment decision. So if it's a owner occupier property or whatever, that's a different motivation. So you should look at the property a bit differently. But if it's only for investment, you really do need to rely on the numbers. You need to know your rental returns. You need to know how much you're prepared to spend on the property, and what your costs are going to be as well, such as interest rates. So it's much more of a mathematical or a scientific decision. So don't get carried away with needing to spend $50,000 more than what you're prepared to pay, or $50,000 more than what the asking price is. And the final bit of the question was, what was that?
What is the market moving, and is discounting? Is that
discounting?
Yeah.
No, discounting is absolutely not happening. It's a bit of a foreign word, foreign term for probably the last 12 to 18 months here in Perth. There's no discounting. Whatever the opposite of discounting is, people typically have been putting asking prices on their properties, and they've either been achieving those asking prices and in many cases have been exceeding the asking prices because there's been that much competition for property. So definitely not discounting, and with the spring selling season coming up over at least the next 6 months, I can't see discounting coming into our market whatsoever.
For people that are wondering what we're talking about when we say discounting, so what we're talking about discounting is where the asking price, so the for sale price that you see that's advertised or marketed, and there's a lot of cases where the price isn't being advertised. There's a couple of options there, and I'm having a mental blank at the moment. Too many Olympic game events, but what I'm getting at is that when we talk about discounting, what if the market price or the advertised price is on the board, and you then put an offer, which was happening some 18 months ago, you could put an offer in for, let's say it was advertised for 520, and you could put an offer in for 470, with every chance of possibly getting near the mark. Whereas in the current market, 520, you want to be 520, possibly even more than 520. And the likelihood of your offer of 500 or 480 being accepted is unlikely.
Yeah, correct? And that's on that totally 100%. And that is on the presumption that the asking price, the initial asking price, is not a greedy owner. It's not someone who's been unrealistic. Because that's when you actually will see some discounting, but it's not true discounting if someone was ridiculous with their asking price in the first place, because all that is that's just getting back down to what the market value actually was. So what we're talking about is discounting from and the actual market value as supported by evidence, and sellers needing to drop their price below what their asking prices are. That's just not happening in the current market, not at all.
Yep. Okay, the other question we have, hi TV, not sure if this is a question for you or your offsider. That's you, offsider.
That'll be me, yeah.
Have an investment property, and I am relying on, can't read my own writing. I'm relying on the income with my retirement. It's not huge rent, and I have tried to be fair. I keep on getting promises, but no rent for 3 months. I've served a notice, but since no action. What is my process from here, as it seems so unfair what I'm required to do, and I'm the one out of pocket? From Jack.
Well, Jack, my first reaction to that is if, and this is on the basis that you've done everything that you should have under what's known as the Residential Tenancies Act. So there's a formal lease in place, and you followed the protocols, the notice periods, you've done everything that you should do. And then you did mention in your question that you've also served notice, and I'm assuming that must be either a notice of breach or a notice to terminate, but the tenant is ignoring that and not giving you back your property, the next step after that is to go to the magistrates court, which is where residential tenancy matters are sorted out. So you can file a case with the local magistrates court, and you'll need to supply the tenant details, and that way you'll actually have your case heard in full by the magistrate on the day of the case. So that's my initial reaction in terms of what you can do. It does sound like a classic case, though, of someone who's decided to look after their own property management for whatever the reasons are. There's a whole host of reasons, and for whatever reasons, like, people are property managers for a reason, because that's what they do with their time. They're professional at it. They're educated in it as well. And in my opinion, it really is worth its weight in gold. I do hear of landlords that don't choose to go with a professional licensed property manager. And not always, but pretty commonly, I hear of stories such as this. So, and if ever a motivation was to save on the property management fees, so that you don't need to pay someone else to do it, but this sort of thing happens, like it sounds like what may have happened to you, Jack, unfortunately, it ends up costing you a whole lot more money than it would have costed you in the property management fees in the first place. So it sounds like it's an unfortunate situation, Jack. It won't solve itself. So what I would say is, the tenant's probably doing exactly what they're wanting to do. From your point of view, take some action, go and get some independent advice if you like. You can speak to the DMIRS, which is Department of Mines, Industry, Regulation and Safety. They act for both landlords and, or rather advise both landlords and tenants. Have a chat to DMIRS and find out what action you should take. But to me, based on what you've said in your question, I really think the next step is the magistrates court.
And that is a classic example as well of getting independent advice, of getting going there and getting it, particularly if that is an issue where that person is managing the place themselves. But that's very similar to, we had a similar question of that a couple of episodes ago, I think, something along similar lines. But
yeah.
From what I understand, this is not the same person. But the other thing with regard to that, and I found this out through another person asking me for my direction, is that to go through the court system, so once you carry out the respective processes and issue your notice, you've got to go through the court where that property is located. So if you're in Perth, you can't go and your property is in Port Hedland. You've got to go through the system, the magistrates court in Port Hedland, not in Perth. Is that right?
You have to go through the magistrates court that is closest to the property.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that's because that was what someone else asked me, and I went, "Oh, I think you're fine." So you gave me some information, and I looked it up and I checked it out myself. Yeah, and I checked it. Yes, some time ago, but I remember I kept it. Hi guys, we know how you like your articles, TV. How rude.
How true.
Did you see the one about build to rent? You know the concept, and perhaps that is a topic you could discuss or explain on your show. From Simon. Well, Simon, do you know what? Are you aware what the build to rent concept's about?
Only the quick snapshot. Look, I've heard of it, TV. No, I don't know it inside out. I think I know the very broad concept, but it's pretty broad what I know.
Yeah. Same. But maybe that's one we might put aside and do some homework on that, and maybe.
Oh, I thought, by the way, you just said, well, Simon, I thought you were going to just absolutely unleash and tell Simon all about it.
Oh, well, I can. Well, I can tell you to a point, but I cheated a bit because I found a reference of an article, and
what article?
Yeah, and there was an article a couple of months ago about building to rent, and the process, the idea of it in simple terms is basically where am I? Build to rent projects are relatively new concept here in WA. Build to rent refers to residential development in which all apartments are owned by the developer and leased out directly to tenants. So they build the whole complex and they retain the ownership, and then they rent the whole complex out, rather than developers. You know how developers will build a complex and they'll be strata out and they'll sell them. In this case, build to rent, which, from my understanding, is not a well-known concept here in WA, but it's something that will obviously, as Simon suggested, and yes, Simon, we're not fully au fait with it, but perhaps it's a topic for another segment, and maybe we can get someone who specialises in that area.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do a bit of digging on it, TV. But
it'd be good to get a guest as well, though.
Yeah,
if we could find someone who specialises.
Love to. Okay,
all right, that's your job. Okay, you got time to do some heavy lifting. Guess what next? Guess what's next? Our next
hopefully the notice board.
It is. It is.
I love the notice board.
What's on the notice board? Here we go. This has become the number of people that made comment to me about last week's What's on the Notice Board. Take your plant for a walk day. Oh, my God. I even post a little segment on our social media page. If you haven't heard what our little segment, What's on the Notice Board, particularly last week, even I laughed when I heard it replayed back. I just couldn't help myself. I got the giggles. Yeah, What's on the Notice Board, but more particularly, last Wednesday, 27th of July, was Take Your House Plant for a Walk Day. And, so we got to laugh. So the idea of What's on the Notice Board, for those that are new to our new concept, it is all about the fact that if you've got something, we would love you to get involved. So if you've got the kids' school fete on, or you've got an event, or you've got a sports day you'd like to promote, or you might have a business and you've got a special thing you're doing, promo you want to do, we would love to promote it and be a part of our What's on the Notice Board. So anything you can think of might be.
Can you play that little jingle again?
Do you want me to?
I love it, TV.
Anyway, What's on the Notice Board? Jordan Golf Club Invitational is happening on the September the 25th and 26th. I'm pretty sure that's a long weekend. I better check that. I did say that. That's on Saturday, an 18-hole combined sailboat event. On Sunday, an individual 18-hole sailboat event. And then the overall is a 36-hole event, which is basically your individual scores for both Saturday and Sunday. You can play one day, you can play both days. And I also noticed, I went and checked it out, that there's a dinner on the Saturday night. I think it's going to cost $25, and there's a lesser charge for kids. Well, I couldn't be exact about that, but we'll follow that through. And so that's at the Jordan Golf Club. If you're doing it, great course. The weather will be spot on then. It'll be perfect. So if you're a golfer and you want to get a little time away. And also, today, do you know what today is? You'll love this.
Today.
Today is the 3rd, but tomorrow it is International Owl Awareness Day.
International what?
Owl.
Owl.
Owl. Owl. You know the bird. Yeah. Yep. That's it.
International Owl Awareness Day.
International Owl Awareness Day today, and so yep, that's what it's about. And if you want to know,
that's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it?
It aims to celebrate one of the most. No. You know what it's all about? It aims to celebrate one of the most iconic bird species and raise awareness to their plight in the wild and what we can all do to help protect them.
That's fantastic, man. I would have thought that, I think it's an oxymoron. It should have been called International Owl Awareness Night.
And did you know the month of August? You know what the month of August is?
The one before September?
It's Family Fun Month.
Oh, Family Fun Month.
Didn't you know that?
Mate, I have family fun every month.
Yep. The other thing on the What's on the Notice Board is a mate of mine. It's his birthday tomorrow. And so happy birthday, Mel. He does occasionally listen to this show. So, Melly, happy birthday, a long-standing friend of mine. And next Tuesday, you asked about this, next Tuesday is Census Day. So everybody will be home, be able to do their census, and then they can switch over and watch Property Avenue WA.
Beauty.
So there you go. That was... There you go. It is fun. Hey, we do have some fun. We do have a laugh. You got to have a laugh. You got to have a laugh. Hey, we're just about knocking on the door of everything we need to do. But I thought, you know how I always like to make reference to property headlines. One of the headlines that I found really interesting. Did you see where it was Amazon? I think it was Amazon. Whereby you now let me have a look and see where I can find this.
Where have to have a look for the article.
Cashless and creepy was the article. A visit grocery shopping where this guy went over to and I always remember when I was in the bank a long time ago, and they told us that we'd be able to get a card and you'd be able to go to a machine and get money out, and we all scoffed at that idea. Well, in Washington, you can go into a store and you basically don't even pull your card out. You don't pull your money out. You just get whatever it is you're taking off the shelf. You put it in your basket or your bag. You don't have a basket. You put it in your shopping bag and you walk out. And when you get home, you'll find all those items have been scanned and done and taken out of your bank account.
Yeah.
Scary.
Scary. I heard about that, or I might have seen something like that on the news maybe a month ago. In fact, no, the concept that I saw was one step before that, and that was you dump everything in your trolley and your trolley knows what you've just placed in it, because it scans it on the way in and then it automatically charges you.
Pretty much the same thing. Pretty much the same idea. And this particular person took something off the shelf and decided they didn't want it and put it back, and it actually showed that item going on and off.
Yeah.
On their statement. So we're not far away.
Much is unthinkable these
days. I have an issue. I'll tell you where I have a problem with this. I have a problem with this, that all of a sudden we get to that point, and there's no doubt we're going to get that point. I mean, we already have machines where we go in and we don't even see a cashier anymore. We go into the grocery store and do our own things, but it does my head in because the machine malfunctions and then says, and then I've got to call someone over, and you know what I mean. But I have an issue with this, and that's called employment. There's so many people, and there were Olympians who work at Woolies and Coles and various stores to make ends meet because of their training, and have got flexibility to be able to go to train because they can't have I shouldn't say a proper job, but a regular job. And so all of a sudden those opportunities and those young kids after school that earn some money, those jobs are going to be gone. And I think that's sad.
Mate, I do think it's sad as well. It's about profits. There's no question, how do you increase your revenues? How do you reduce your costs? So the goal over there for those big companies doing that is profits. When I think about my little business, though, that I've started and that I'm running, my business, for whatever little level of success that it's having at the moment, it's because of the lack of technology, or rather the strategic use of technology, and remembering why people need the service that I provide in the first place. And what I mean by that is there's apps and automation and there's all these different things that could almost do my job for me, but I actually prefer to get on the phone, have a relationship, talk to people and actually be able to help them. And I know for a fact that's what they're after. So if I wanted to go down this big, massive technology angle and only focus on the profits, then I guess I'd be entitled to do that. But and this is the same in every other industry as well. Just on that, whether it's a grocery store or the corner store, or even a petrol station that's got someone that will actually come out and talk to you, or those petrol stations there's still a couple of them around where someone will come out and actually fill your car up with petrol. Like, people absolutely love it. They absolutely love it.
Yep.
So, yeah, but...
which you refer to, another little headline was about the Bushfire Home Risk app, which I think is incredible if there's something along those lines. Australians living in bushfire zones will receive a free smart device app designed to help them assess the risk posed to their homes. This is all in the wake of the devastating Black Summer bushfires, where 2.2 million Australians living in the high-risk areas have new reason for hope. And so this app will be of assistance to them. We estimate that at least 90% of buildings in these areas are not resilient to bushfire, putting lives, homes and livelihoods at unacceptable risk. And they brought Australia's leading bushfire scientists, engineers and industry together to give households a personalised, practical solution to adapt to their homes.
Yeah.
Now, that is a useful app, which
absolutely
we're getting to the end of our show. And it gets to me, I can't believe we did an hour. The if question. I'll have to have a little jingle for the if question, won't I? I'll have to get an if question jingle.
You don't have one yet?
No, I'll work on it, okay? That's my next project. Someone's got to do the heavy lifting. The if question. When it comes to your phone, if you had a choice of your favourite app, what app is the most useful to you and probably the most used app on your phone or iPad?
That's a good question. What's the most used app? Used/useful app that you would use? I know that I use my banking ones quite a bit. Any of the bank apps. So that's one. But I guess the other ones are entertainment apps that when I'm looking to take my mind off work, or I've got half an hour to kill or whatever, and I'm not wanting to think about work or wind down. So, entertainment sort of activity type apps.
Yep.
What about you, mate? What's the most used app on your phone? TikTok, no doubt.
No, I've never done the old TikTok. I'm probably a little bit. Yeah, I'm probably that age group that. One of my favorite apps. I write a journal. I don't do it every day, but that's one of my most favorite. But one of two apps when I want to do something just to get my mind away from things. I certainly listen to my music, music and or podcast. But Sudoku. I've got an app on my iPad and my phone that I do Sudoku, and I just go away and I'll just do that. Sometimes if I've had lunch and I'll just sit down in a chair and have a breather and just get away from it all. If it's not music, then I'll do some Sudoku. And that's one of those apps that I just I love using and I've had it for some time. There's probably more up-to-date Sudokus, but that's one of mine. But there's lots of goodies. But I just thought I'd ask that question, seeing that was the headline. Mate, that's the week. That has been fabulous. Thoroughly enjoyed doing it. For those people that are wondering what we're all about, probably Avenue WA is talking WA property. It's Oscar and I. We're hoping to get a guest on again next week. Unfortunately, colds and flus and illnesses had a bit of an impact, but we'll follow that through. You can get access to us via our Facebook page, our Twitter account, or our Instagram. We love doing what we're doing, and if you've got any ideas, you've got any questions, by all means, send them through each week. Look forward to the rest of the Olympic Games. I can't wait. Looking for just watching the competition. And, of course, we look forward to doing property again. Mate, thanks a million for everything. Been fabulous once again. What an hour.
Always.
Enjoyed it.
Beauty.
Take care.
Thanks, AB.